Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Priscilla Wyers and Mary Bailey? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case. I'll move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Wayne Wyers was born in Spencer, West Virginia on August 8, 1957. He was one of 5 children. Wayne performed well in school and played football. Sometime around 1974, Wayne met a 15-year-old named Priscilla Bailey. The two started dating not long after this. Eventually, Priscilla became bored with Wayne and broke up with him. They both started other relationships that involved marriage. Wayne ended up getting married, and Priscilla allegedly dated a married man, thereby illustrating the difference between entering a marriage and intruding on a marriage. On October 25, 1975, 17-year-old Priscilla gave birth to a daughter named Mary Elizabeth Bailey. Wayne saw Priscilla in the hospital because his wife was giving birth at the same time. Wayne and Priscilla only spoke briefly, but this had a profound impact on Wayne. When Priscilla returned home, he called her and said he wanted to spend time with her. When she pointed out that he was married, he said he didn't want to be married. They ended up taking a car ride, which ignited their magical and never-ending love. Wayne filed for divorce a few weeks later and eventually moved in with Priscilla and her daughter Mary. Wayne and Priscilla eventually married, and over the course of the next 10 years, they had 3 children, Chris, Melissa, and John. In 1986, the family moved into a small and run-down house in Adrian, West Virginia. They lived there with Priscilla's mother, Eva Bailey. The family was very poor, despite Wayne working as a truck driver and being gone a week at a time. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On February 24, 1987, 29-year-old Priscilla Wyers called 911 and told the police that she shot and killed her husband Wayne. When the police arrived, they found several people in the house, including Priscilla, Eva, Mary, and the other 3 children. They found 29-year-old Wayne on the floor. The police found it curious that no one was attempting to render aid to Wayne, like they were just standing there watching him writhing in pain on the floor. Wayne told the police that he had been shot and he was going to die. He did not know who shot him. The police could smell alcohol on his breath. They examined Wayne and found that he had a small wound on his torso, but there was little blood on or around him. They found a .22 caliber case on the floor and a .22 caliber rifle somewhere else in the house. Wayne was transported to the hospital, where he would die 2 hours later. The police questioned Priscilla. Here's what she had to say about the events leading up to the shooting. When Wayne was away from the house, Priscilla loaned his Jeep to a friend of hers. When Wayne returned, he realized the Jeep had been involved in some type of wreck. In looking at the photographs of the Jeep, it's not really clear why Wayne was upset about the damage. Maybe he had all the dents and the rust just where he wanted them before the wreck. Priscilla told Wayne that she was driving and lost control of the vehicle. Wayne did not believe her, and he wandered out into the neighborhood asking people if they had seen anything. A neighbor told him that Priscilla had sex with a person who damaged the Jeep. Priscilla denied having sex with the man, but Wayne did not believe her. He became furious and started beating her. He held a knife to her face, and he attempted to strangle her with a shirt that he had ripped off of her. Priscilla indicated that she acted in self-defense when she shot Wayne 1 time with a .22 caliber rifle. The police did not find any injuries on Priscilla consistent with the alleged attack. They believed that she was lying. At this point, Priscilla proved them correct. She told the police that she made up the story about shooting Wayne. In reality, she did not shoot him. Her 11-year-old daughter, Mary, was the actual shooter. The police questioned Mary about her mother's claim. Mary confessed to the homicide, saying that she retrieved the rifle, loaded it, and shot Wayne 1 time. The police tested the hands of Priscilla and Mary for gunshot residue. They left the residence without making an arrest, but they planned to return later because of the murder part. When the lab results came in, they indicated that gunshot residue was present on Mary's hands and not on Priscilla's hands. The police were convinced that Mary did pull the trigger, but they were not convinced that she was responsible for Wayne's murder. After talking to Mary, the police realized that she did not know how to load the gun, and she did not understand the function of the safety or how to operate the safety. The police believed that Priscilla coerced Mary into shooting Wayne. When they spoke to Eva Bailey, Mary's grandmother, they found more evidence to support the theory that Priscilla was behind the murder. Eva told the police that her daughter Priscilla had previously attempted to kill Wayne by trying to poison his coffee, but she was not successful for some reason. Perhaps she failed to use enough poison, or she used the wrong type of poison. Priscilla was upset by her failure and was searching for other methods. She specifically wrote about rat poison and a .22 caliber firearm. Eva told her daughter not to commit murder and that murder was hard to do. I find it interesting that Eva felt compelled to resort to the murder is difficult argument, like she had a feeling that if an activity involved work, Priscilla would not be interested. Both Priscilla and Mary were arrested for murder. The charges against Mary were dropped after she agreed to testify against her mother. On June 15, 1988, Priscilla's trial started. Here's what Mary indicated during her testimony. Wayne was physically abusive and threatened to kill her mother. Priscilla woke Mary up and introduced the idea of shooting Wayne. Priscilla said, "I need you to do this for me, shoot him in the head." She added that Mary was too young to go to jail. Mary was very frightened and pleaded with her mother. She did not want to do it, but her mother insisted it was the only way to be free of Wayne. Priscilla handed her the rifle and pointed her in the direction of the living room where Wayne was sleeping. Mary walked out to Wayne and pointed the rifle at his torso. She decided against shooting him in the head. Mary pulled the trigger, but nothing happened because the safety was engaged. Mary brought the rifle back to Priscilla, who checked it and told Mary it was ready to be fired. Mary returned to the living room for a second time, pointed the weapon at Wayne, and pulled the trigger. The safety was still engaged, and the weapon did not discharge. Mary brought the rifle back to her mother again. This time her mother disengaged the safety. Mary returned to the living room for a third time, pointed the weapon at Wayne, pulled the trigger, and the weapon discharged. The defense did not refute Mary's version of events. They admitted that Priscilla had coerced Mary into shooting Wayne. The strategy for the defense was to say that Priscilla was a victim of domestic violence. She had battered woman syndrome. Eva testified and said that Wayne was abusive. At one point, on the night he was killed, he had a butcher knife in his hand and said he was going to kill Priscilla. Priscilla testified in her own defense. She accused Wayne of committing physical, sexual, and verbal offenses. The prosecution argued that Priscilla may have been a victim, but she had murder-free options. They also noted that she had tried to murder her husband on a previous occasion and actively sought other ways to kill him. Priscilla Wyers was convicted of first-degree murder on June 23, 1988. The jury only needed 3 hours to reach their verdict. They recommended mercy for Priscilla as far as sentencing, which meant that she would be eligible for parole in 10 years. So she was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years. In 1998, she was released after Mary advocated to the parole board. Priscilla moved in with her daughter Mary. After this, Priscilla met a man and became pregnant, which Mary characterized as her mother going back to her old ways. After about a year, Mary helped her mother find another place to live, and Mary moved to North Carolina. She would become a nurse there. According to an interview that was made available in July of 2022, Mary indicated that Priscilla has cancer in several parts of her body. It does not sound like Priscilla is doing too well. Now moving to my analysis. Was Priscilla Wyers guilty of murder? And if she was guilty, did the sentence she received represent justice? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Priscilla was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Priscilla admitted that she pressured her 11-year-old daughter to shoot her husband. Wayne was asleep when he was shot. He was not a threat to anyone at that moment. Even though Priscilla initially accepted responsibility, she later tried to make it seem as though she had no idea her daughter was going to shoot Wayne. Priscilla tried to eliminate Wayne on a prior occasion and had a general interest in Wayne no longer being alive. Priscilla's defense was that Wayne attacked her, but she did not have any injuries consistent with an attack. Wayne's relatives said that he was not a violent person. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Eva and Mary both said that Wayne was threatening and harmful toward Priscilla. That's pretty much it for exculpatory factors. When considering all the evidence, do I think that Priscilla was guilty of first-degree murder? Yes. I think she was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and guilty in reality. This was not a self-defense case. There is no such thing as a slow-moving self-defense. In order to be justified in killing Wayne, there would have to be an imminent danger that he was causing. Actively pressuring one's daughter into shooting an alleged assailant undermines the imminent danger theory. What about Priscilla's sentence? The jury believed that mercy was indicated. I find it curious that the prosecutor also agreed that Priscilla should not spend her entire life in prison. I think it's clear that Priscilla was under some type of severe stress in her relationship with Wayne. It is reasonable to believe that Wayne had mistreated her in the past, even if he did not represent an imminent threat around the time when he was killed. This is a mitigating factor that could justify a reduced sentence. The problem for Priscilla is the involvement of her daughter. This is an aggravating factor. I believe that Priscilla pressured her daughter to kill Wayne because Priscilla did not believe that she could do it herself. I don't think her initial reason for the involvement of her daughter was to escape responsibility. Rather, that occurred to her later on when she gave the interview to the media. She started thinking that a permanent move to prison was incompatible with her life goals. Therefore, she tried to blame her daughter. The involvement of Mary was egregious and horrendous, regardless of the motive. It should have occurred to Priscilla that coercing her daughter into shooting Wayne would have been traumatic for Mary. I think this lack of empathy and Priscilla's willingness to damage an innocent person are more consistent with a minimum of 30 years in prison as opposed to 10. I think that Priscilla's shocking and unproven descriptions of Wayne's behavior convinced the jury that Wayne was a terrible offender. At one point, Priscilla introduced the idea that Wayne had involved dogs in his offenses, and I think the jury was just shocked to hear that. They just couldn't get that thought out of their minds when they were considering the sentencing recommendation. I don't think that Wayne was in the running for the Husband of the Year award, but it bothers me that he never had a chance to defend himself. Maybe he would have offered some type of explanation that would have made him look not as bad. Priscilla was an unsophisticated killer who managed to destroy and damage other lives while being permitted to live most of her years in freedom. Those are my thoughts in the case of Priscilla Wyers and Mary Bailey. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.